Hey, 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 big X, big stepper. Cut off my bitch, she was being too extra. I saw my line screaming how they gon'
What's going on, YouTube? It's the man Soul. Welcome back to the channel. You know what it is when you click. And I'm going over probably one of the more annoying challenge mode goals to go over. If this was your first challenge mode, God bless. If you are an old hat at it like me, then you already know what time it is with Mogu'shan Palace. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit the ground running with the dungeon. Probably one of the hardest pulls you're going to do in this dungeon is the very first one where you're kind of going down that hallway. Make sure your healer knows what's going on and they keep up with you because you're just kind of zooming all the way to the first boss and starting that RP. You don't want to just be chilling, waiting for 20 seconds of RP while you're not fighting anything. That's really a big time sink, and this dungeon's timer is very tight, so you don't want to be wasting any amount of seconds. So as you can see here, I kind of group up everything, let them come in, and then I summon my Remorseless Winter to kind of give me that stun and that extra cushion time, and I summon the army. Big fact, if you have access to a Death Knight or if you are a Blood DK yourself, army can definitely smooth out this pull a lot, especially because you don't have to spend time face tanking and it allows you to set up for the boss. Your army will taunt for you, things will run into the army, and it'll allow your DPS to kind of just straight up blast them in AoE. Your armies are really not going to move around too much. They're going to kind of shuffle around in like a 5-yard radius, which is enough for DPS to cleave, and it allows you time to just focus on the boss. Now, this first boss really isn't that terrible. Like, it does hit harder than Heroic, obviously, but if you're tanking it by itself, really not a problem. The problem only comes into effect if you have to tank it with the ads from the hallway. As you can see, some of these ads are trickling in, but they're really low, so I wasn't too worried about it. As far as this first one is concerned, the guy with the Quillen, as long as you face the shockwaves away from the party, everything is all good. He doesn't really do too much. Even the Quillen Ravage isn't really that hard to deal with from a healer standpoint, so as long as you're doing that and you don't have to fight this guy with too many of the hallway mobs, you are golden. This guy is not threatening at all. He's light work. As you can see, I'm pulling him into the casters because all I'm doing is straight up eating those lightning bolts. They don't mean nothing to me. No sending, return to sender, all of that. So we're going to cleave these guys down. The boss deactivates because he hit the health threshold. We finish off these lightning mobs and we go to the next boss. Now with this guy, I'm sorry I don't know their names. They're not important enough for me to know their names. But with this guy, the most threatening thing he does is his lightning bolt. And from a Death Knight standpoint, I would say the most useful thing you can do outside of just doing large damage is to Dark Simulacrum his lightning bolt, because it was hitting, at least with my vengeance level. I don't know if that lightning bolt scales with my vengeance, but it was hitting for 270k or 260k, one or the other. So it's not nothing for sure. And 260k every 30 seconds or every minute, if you can manage that, which he's not going to be alive that long. Like, if your DPS is high enough, he's not going to be alive really for 2 Dark Sims, really. Maybe two at the most, but it's not nothing. It's free damage that you don't have to worry about, and it helps you just get through this faster. Remember, the name of the game in this dungeon is shave time where you can. The timer is very tight, and there are some forced spots in this dungeon that you have no choice but to wait. So keep that in mind. Now, with the fire guy, his most important thing is the conflag. Technically, it's the meteor, but the meteor all you have to do is stack up. The conflag, pardon me, is really what you want to be focused on, and you can always tell who he's going to conflag because he targets that person. Fortunately for our group, or in this run, I should say, I was the target, so I was able to AMS prior to getting conflagged, and I never got disoriented, which means I was still able to full send damage on the boss, and it also means we were able to skip the meteor. So definitely, if you, again, Death Knight value here. Obviously, you can't control who he's going to conflag, but if he does conflag a DK, you already know that you can pre-AMS it and you won't get disoriented. So let's keep the ball running here and let's go down the stairs, which you're about to come up and find out that this is the most time that you're going to be able to save after the first boss. Alrighty, after the first boss, as we head down the stairs, hunters and rogues, if you have a hunter or a rogue, they get maximum value in here because they allow your whole group to facilitate an invis skip. How they do this, they run ahead of your party, interact with the scout, and immediately feign death, or in the rogue's case, vanish. This allows you to not be in combat, not be placed in combat, and skip this whole entire hallway, which is probably the biggest time sink of the dungeon, to be quite honest. So a rogue or hunter gets maximum value here. If you try to invis at the steps, you won't quite make it to the end, and you'll still have to pull either the hexer pack or the skulkers and the hexers, depending on how late your invis was. So keep that in mind. This is the biggest time saver you can do in the entire dungeon, because you don't have to waste time fighting down an Ironhide and then fighting down all of the mobs around it. And you can jump right into the next boss. So keep that in mind. For here, it's pretty much group up, get the Ironhide down as quickly as you can, and then tank and spank. So for the Skulker, because the Skulker will be stunning you, if you can do the dance, if you can get out of melee range before his Skulk cast end or his stun ends, you won't get stunned. As you can see, I did not do a good job here with that. As far as a Death Knight is concerned, you can Icebound Fortitude for the first 12 seconds of the fight, so you won't get stunned, so you can help group things up and interrupt and stuff like that. But now, as you can see, I'm starting to try to dodge those stun casts, because I really don't want to be stunned while having to fight this whole boss and all his minions. If your healer is ready for it, then it can be okay, but you really don't want to get stunned here. You really don't want to be stunned here. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Another quick tidbit I didn't say for the upstairs part, because we did the invis skip, but if you cannot do an invis skip and you have no choice but to fight the Ironhide pack up top, if you stun the Ironhide, it will stop his defensive devotion aura for the duration of the stun. So let's say you put down a capacitor totem and it stuns for 5 seconds. For those 5 seconds, his 50% damage reduction aura is gone. So keep that in mind if you do end up having to fight the Ironhide. If you stun it, his aura goes away for the duration of the stun. Other than that, as long as you can survive the skulks and you can not get stunned when it counts, this boss is pretty easy tank and spank. Easy tank and spank. All right, so the next part up here is we're going to the ladder or the elevator, however you want to call it, and you can just, like what we did, we can just CC these mobs and run right across here. Keep in mind, if you don't have CC, all you have to do is have the tank engage with that pack, have everyone else run ahead of you, and then just wait for the elevator. As soon as you get on the elevator, they won't snap to you, they won't follow you. It's that simple. This right here, though, if you catch the elevator at a bad time, it's just 20 seconds of wasted time. So unfortunately, we had to waste, but we didn't have to fight, so that was good. Sometimes there is a patrolling Ironhide pack that definitely want to skip when you first reach the top of that boss's room. But again, if you just make it to the elevator and everyone can get on the elevator, they will not snap up to you. They will not follow you up here. All right, now as we approach the last boss's room, we kind of got a little lucky as to where this pat was. So I was able to straight up go right into the pat here and fight them. And I told my group, make sure you kill the casters first and make sure you interrupt fireball. The spinny cast really isn't that consequential, but make sure you interrupt the fireball so they can continue moving. That's really the name of the game here, getting those casters down so you can kind of drag the two melee boys with you. Keep in mind, as you're going down this little last hallway towards the last boss, there is a pat that goes from left to right in the next part of this hallway as I'm running in it right now. All right, you see these two big guys, right? There's a pat that goes from left to right or right to left, depending on where you catch him in his patrol. Make sure you don't pull that. We were fortunate enough to where we were able to skip it. It wasn't there. But if you do end up getting to that part in the hallway and they're in the middle, you have no choice but to wait. You could try to fight them, but I feel like you waste more time fighting them than you do just waiting the extra 5 seconds to have them walk past. So keep that in mind. So now I'm grouping everything up. And we kind of entered this room with some time on our hands. Like, we actually entered this room with a nice chunk of time. So I didn't want to overstretch my boundaries and pull this and the Quillins, because they do leave a bleed, which by themselves isn't really that big a deal. But combined with all of the hallway mobs can kill you. So I didn't want to overstep my boundaries. I was already low on CDs anyway, so adding the Quillins when I wasn't ready for them would have just been disastrous. So I waited. I had no choice but to wait. I made sure that I got the Quillins out, and I'm going to group them up, and then we go right into the last boss. Our healer is able to use the Amber and get his mana back up really quickly. So yeah, let's just go into these Quillins. Now, like I said before, we hit the last boss with a lot of time on our hands. And again, we weren't really trying to enter the boss with me dry on cooldowns because we really wanted to make sure we were going to time this. So because of that skip, we were able to save so much time, and with a few lucky patrol placements, right? Like the patrol right before this boss's room was in a pretty good spot where we didn't have to fight it and drag it all the way up. So that was pretty lucky. We did end up having to wait for the elevator, but that was no harm, no foul. And then, yeah, you go right into the boss here. And this boss is kind of the same as it is on Heroic. He does do more damage, but it's really more damage from the other abilities, like more damage from the arrows, from the fire rings, and so on and so forth. He really doesn't hit that hard. And as long as you're not getting hit by that ground slam, you'll be fine as a tank. Like this guy is nothing. We eat all of his melee attacks. You just sidestep this ground slam. Cool. And we right back to putting the beaters to him. Look at those, eating those hits. So, yeah, this dungeon was extremely frustrating for me in the beginning because of that first pull. It's really, really difficult to kind of get a synergy down as to what you need to use. Eventually, I had to stop using Gorfine's Grass and start using Remorseless Winter just to give me, a little bit of extra cushion. I had to add Army into the equation so my ghouls would taunt and I would be able to just start the boss comfortably. So it's really kind of like a trial and error on how well your group does with that first initial pull. So that's kind of like learning curve number 1. Learning curve number 2 for this dungeon is if you can facilitate a skip from after the first boss going to the second boss. If you can skip all of the trash going from downstairs all the way to the second boss, you'll be fine. That is, like I said, the most amount of time you can save in this dungeon. So if you can do that, then for sure. If you can't do that, I would say at least try to skip the Iron Hides. What you don't want to do is have to fight a mob that's making everything else take 50% less damage. For sure you don't. So if you can't skip the whole hallway, at least try to skip the Iron Hide pack, because that's really what's going to save you a lot of time, even without the full invis skip. So that's really it for Mogu'shan Palace, guys. I appreciate everyone that watched this. If you like what you saw, please consider liking and subscribing. It's going to help your boy grow. Other than that, y'all know the drill. Y'all been great. I've been Soul, and I'm out. Peace.